The porcelain plate shattered against the bulkhead, sending shards of expensive china raining down on the first-class carpet. But the sound of breaking pottery was nothing compared to the silence that followed. Standing over seat 1A was a flight attendant with a face twisted in hate. Sitting in the seat, wiping lukewarm coffee off his vintage hoodie, was a young black man who hadn't said a word. She called him a savage. She called him a thief. She told the captain to have the police waiting on the tarmac to drag him to a cell. But Patricia Vance, this self-proclaimed queen of the cabin, made a calculation error that would cost her more than just her job. She didn't know that the homeless thug she was abusing wasn't flying to Tokyo for a vacation. He was flying there to sign the deed to the very plane she was standing on. And when he finally unlocked his phone and made one call, the turbulence outside wouldn't compare to the storm he was about to unleash inside. Flight 909 from Los Angeles to Tokyo was the crown jewel of the Pacific route. It was a flying palace. The first-class cabin featured enclosed suites, a stand-up bar, and air filtration systems that made 35,000 feet feel like a spring meadow. For Patricia Vance, this cabin was her stage. Patricia was 48, with a uniform that was tailored a little too tight and a smile that was practiced in a mirror. She didn't serve passengers, she auditioned them. If you were a celebrity, she was your best friend. If you were old money, she was your loyal servant. But if you didn't fit her narrow definition of worthy, you were invisible. Or worse, you were a target. "Check the manifest again, Sarah," Patricia snapped at the junior flight attendant in the galley. "I see a D. Sterling in 1A. Sounds like old money, maybe a hedge fund manager. I want the 1998 Krug on ice." "Yes, Patricia," Sarah whispered, terrified. Sarah was new. She still had the sparkle of kindness in her eyes. Patricia hated that sparkle. She had spent 20 years scrubbing it out of herself. The boarding process began. The usual parade of privilege marched down the jet bridge. There was Mr. Yamamoto, the tech giant, bowing politely. There was Mrs. Higgins, a widow dripping in diamonds, who traveled with her own silk sheets. Patricia greeted them with the warmth of a long-lost sister. "Mrs. Higgins, you look ravishing. Is that a new brooch?" Patricia cooed, taking the woman's coat. "Oh, this old thing? Just a little trinket from Zurich." Mrs. Higgins chuckled, settling into seat 2B. Then the atmosphere changed. A young man stepped onto the plane. He was tall, with skin the color of deep obsidian and dreadlocks tied back neatly. He wore a faded gray oversized hoodie, loose joggers, and beaten-up sneakers. He carried a canvas duffel bag that looked like it had survived a war zone. He didn't look like Zurich. He looked like South Central. Patricia's smile didn't just fade, it curdled. She stepped into the aisle, her body becoming a physical barricade. "Economy is that way," she said, her voice loud enough to turn heads. She pointed a manicured finger toward the back of the plane, past the curtain, past the dignity. Dante stopped. He looked at her finger, then at her face. His eyes were calm, too calm. "I know where economy is," he said, his voice a low baritone. "But I'm not sitting there." Patricia let out a sharp, incredulous scoff. "Economy is that way. It's not a chance to upgrade. This is first class. We don't do upgrades because you smiled at the gate agent. Move along. You're blocking Mr. Yamamoto's view." Dante reached into his pocket. Patricia flinched as if expecting a weapon. He pulled out a crumpled boarding pass and held it up. Suite 1A, Priority 1, D. Sterling. Patricia snatched the ticket. She stared at it. She held it up to the light. She looked at the date. It was valid. It was full fare. It cost $24,000 one way. "How did you get this?" she demanded, not returning the ticket. "Did you steal this? Did you find it on the floor?" "I bought it," Dante said simply. "Can I sit down? I've had a long week." "I bet you have," Patricia muttered, her mind racing. Fraud. It had to be fraud. She'd seen it on the news. Scammers buying tickets with stolen numbers. She would let him sit for now, but she would watch him, and the moment the payment bounced, she would be the one to handcuff him. Fine, she hissed, shoving the ticket back at him. But let me be clear, this isn't a locker room. We have standards of dress and decorum here. If you disturb the other guests, if you smell, if you make noise, I will move you to the jump seat by the toilets. Understood? Dante didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He just nodded, stepped past her, and tossed his duffel bag into the overhead bin. He collapsed into seat 1A, pulling his hood over his head. Patricia marched back to the galley, shaking with rage. He's a drug dealer. Mark my words. No one that age has $24,000 for a flight unless they're selling poison. He seems polite, Sarah ventured. Polite is a cover, Patricia snapped. Watch him. If he asks for alcohol, check his ID. Twice. The plane leveled off at 35,000 feet. The seatbelt sign chimed off. This was usually when the magic happened. The champagne flowed, the caviar was served, and the cabin became a cocktail party in the clouds. Patricia moved down the aisle with the trolley. She poured vintage champagne for Mrs. Higgins. She offered warm nuts to Mr. Yamamoto. She laughed at their jokes. She fixed their pillows. When she reached row 1, the cart didn't stop. She pushed it right past Dante's suite. Dante, who had lowered his hood and was reading a thick report on his laptop, looked up. He waited. He watched her serve the man behind him. He watched her serve the woman across from him. Finally, he pressed the call button. Patricia took her time. She finished chatting with Mrs. Higgins about her poodle before slowly, painfully slowly, walking over to 1A. She didn't enter his suite. She stood in the aisle, looking down her nose. What? I believe you skipped me, Dante said. Could I get some water and maybe the menu? We're out of menus, Patricia lied effortlessly, and the water service is for dining passengers only. Since I doubt you'll be ordering the lobster thermidor, I can bring you a tap water from the galley in a plastic cup. Dante looked at the bottle of Evian sitting in the console of the empty seat next to him. There's water right there. That is for paying customers, Patricia snapped. I paid, Dante said, his patience thinning like ice in the sun. With whose money? Patricia challenged, leaning in. Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. I know your type. You think a fancy ticket buys you respect. Respect is earned. And you, sitting there in your dirty laundry, you haven't earned a thing. She turned on her heel. Dante watched her go. He didn't yell. He didn't cause a scene. He simply opened a new window on his laptop. The screen displayed a live stock ticker. The symbol was ALAA, Atlas Airlines. He typed a message into a secure chat window. Buy order, 51%. Execute at market open. He wasn't a drug dealer. Dante Sterling was the founder of Sterling & Co., a private equity firm that specialized in distressed assets. And Atlas Airlines? It was distressed. He was flying to Tokyo to meet the current board and decide if the company was worth saving. Patricia Vance was currently giving him a live demonstration of the company culture, and the valuation was dropping by the second. 2 hours later. The cabin was dark. Most passengers were asleep. Mrs. Higgins was snoring softly. Dante was working, the glow of his screen illuminating his face. He needed to use the restroom. He stood up, careful not to make a sound, and walked toward the front lavatory. It was occupied. He waited by the galley curtain. Patricia was sitting in the jump seat, scrolling on her phone, a violation of policy. She saw Dante standing there. Sit down, she barked. The bathroom was full, Dante whispered. I don't care. You loitering by the cockpit door is a security threat. You people are always looking for an opportunity. You people? Dante repeated. The air in the galley went cold. What do you mean by you people? Thugs, Patricia said, not backing down. Hoodlums. I bet you're casing the galley for liquor miniatures. Go back to your seat. Use the bathroom in coach. That's where you belong." Dante took a step closer. He was tall, looming over her. "I have tolerated your disrespect for 3 hours because I assumed you were just having a bad day. But now I see, it's not a bad day. It's a bad heart. Are you threatening me?" Patricia's voice rose to a shriek. She wanted a scene. She needed a reason. "Sarah! Captain! He's threatening me!" Before Dante could respond, the lavatory door opened. Out stepped Mr. Abernathy, a rotund businessman from seat 2A. He looked groggy and irritated. "What is all the racket?" Abernathy grumbled. Then he patted his chest. He patted his pockets. His face went pale. "My watch, my Patek Philippe, it's gone." Patricia's eyes lit up. It was Christmas morning. She pointed a finger directly at Dante's chest. "He took it." She announced to Abernathy. "He took it." Dante blinked. "Excuse me?" "He was standing right here," Patricia told Abernathy, her voice breathless with excitement. "He was loitering. I told him to sit down and he got aggressive. He must have bumped into you or slicked it off the counter." "I didn't touch him," Dante said calmly. "I haven't even entered the bathroom yet." "Liar!" Patricia screamed. She was in full performance mode now. She hit the intercom. "Captain, to the cabin! We have a theft! We have a situation!" The cabin lights flooded on. Passengers woke up, groaning. Captain Miller emerged from the cockpit, looking stern. "What is going on?" "Mr. Abernathy's $50,000 watch is stolen," Patricia said, standing next to the businessman like his personal bodyguard. "And this man," she gestured to Dante, "was loitering by the door and acted aggressive when I confronted him. He has the watch." Captain Miller looked at Dante. He saw the hoodie. He saw the dreadlocks. Then he looked at Patricia, his senior purser of 15 years. "Sir," Captain Miller said to Dante, "did you take the watch?" "No, I am a passenger. I am standing in line for the restroom." "Search him. He has it in those baggy pockets, or he put it in his bag." "I have rights," Dante said. His voice dropped an octave. "You will not touch me." "This is international airspace," the captain said, his hand resting on his belt. "I have the authority to detain and search anyone who poses a threat to the order of the flight. Sir, empty your pockets." Dante looked at the captain. He saw a man who just wanted the problem to go away. He looked at Patricia. He saw a woman who wanted to see him destroyed. "Fine," Dante said. He reached into his hoodie pocket. Patricia flinched. He pulled out a phone, a wallet, a pack of gum. He placed them on the galley counter. "Turn out the pockets," Patricia commanded. Dante pulled the lining out. Empty. "The bag," Patricia hissed. "It's in the bag." She didn't wait for permission. She marched to seat 1A, grabbed Dante's canvas duffel, and dragged it into the aisle. "Hey!" Dante shouted, moving forward. The captain stepped in his way, blocking him. "Stay back, son. Let her look." Patricia unzipped the bag. She turned it upside down. She shook it. Out tumbled clothes, a laptop charger, a toiletry kit, and files. Stacks of blue folders marked confidential, financial audit. There was no watch. "It's not here," Sarah whispered, looking at the pile of clothes on the floor. "He hid it," Patricia shrieked. She was frantic now. She couldn't be wrong. "Check his shoes. Check his socks." "Enough," Dante said. He stepped around the captain. He didn't move toward Patricia. He moved toward the lavatory. He pushed the door open with his foot. There, sitting on the small marble shelf next to the sink, glinting under the harsh halogen lights, was the Patek Philippe watch. Mr. Abernathy had taken it off to wash his hands and forgotten it. The silence in the cabin was heavy, suffocating. Mr. Abernathy turned red. He scurried over, grabbed the watch and mumbled, "Oh, yes, right, must have slipped my mind." He retreated to his seat like a cockroach fleeing the light. Dante stood in the aisle, surrounded by his scattered belongings. He looked at Patricia. She wasn't apologizing. She was glaring. She was angry that he was innocent. Pick it up, she said, pointing to his clothes. You're blocking the aisle. It's a safety hazard. Dante stared at her. You falsely accused me of a felony. You searched my private property. You humiliated me in front of the entire cabin. And you want me to pick it up? I was doing my job, Patricia spat. You fit the profile. What profile? Dante asked. Black? Young? Alive? Disruptive, Patricia countered, and you're still disruptive. Captain, I don't feel safe with him in first class. He's aggressive. He challenged my authority. I want him moved. The captain looked weary. He just wanted peace. Sir, said the captain to Dante, ideally we could de-escalate this. Maybe it's best if we relocate you to the rear cabin for the remainder of the flight, just to keep the peace. You're kicking me out of the seat I paid for because she lied? I'm engaging in conflict resolution. The captain used the corporate buzzword. Please, gather your things. Dante looked at the captain. He looked at the passengers, who were all looking away, afraid to make eye contact. Okay, Dante said softly. Okay. He knelt down. He packed his clothes. He put his files back in the folder. He zipped the bag. He stood up. I will go to the back, but before I do, I need to make a call. No calls. Phone's in airplane mode. We have Wi-Fi, Dante corrected, and I'm not calling a friend. I'm calling your boss. Patricia laughed. Go ahead. Call customer service. You'll be on hold for 3 hours. By the time you get through, we'll be in Tokyo and you'll be in handcuffs for disobeying crew instructions. Dante didn't smile. He opened his phone. He didn't dial a 1-800 number. He opened a contact labeled Arthur Vance, CEO, Atlas Airlines. Wait, Vance? Patricia froze. Arthur Vance was the CEO. Patricia's last name was Vance, but no relation. It was a common name. But why did this kid have the CEO's personal cell in his contacts? Dante pressed the video call button. The Wi-Fi connected. The ringtone chirped through the silent cabin. 1 ring, 2 rings. The screen lit up. A face appeared. An older white man sitting in a boardroom looking confused. Dante, the man on the screen said, we weren't expecting to hear from you until you landed. Is everything okay? Did you sign the papers? Patricia stopped breathing. She recognized that face. It was the face on the welcome aboard video she had to play at the start of every flight. Dante held the screen up so the CEO could see the cabin, so he could see the clothes on the floor, so he could see Patricia's terrified face. Hello, Arthur, Dante said, his voice smooth as silk. We have a problem. I'm not going to sign the papers. What? Arthur Vance's face went pale on the screen. Dante, the deal is worth $4 billion. It saves the airline. What happened? I'm currently being escorted to economy class, Dante said, panning the camera to show the captain. Your senior purser, Patricia, accused me of stealing a watch that was in the bathroom. She called me a thug. She dumped my bag, and now the captain is moving me to the back of the bus. Put her on, Arthur roared. The sound from the phone speaker was so loud that Mrs. Higgins jumped. Put her on right now. Dante turned the screen toward Patricia. Miss Vance, the CEO's voice shook with rage. Do you know who that man is? Patricia's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She shook her head. That is Dante Sterling, Arthur shouted. He is the new majority shareholder of Atlas Airlines. As of tomorrow morning, he owns 51% of this company. He owns the plane, he owns the fuel, and he certainly owns your employment contract. Patricia's knees gave way. She grabbed the galley counter to stop herself from collapsing. Dante, Arthur said, his tone shifting to desperation, please, don't pull out. We can fix this. I'll have a car waiting. I'll fire the whole crew. I don't want you to fire the crew, Arthur. That's too easy. I want you to ground the flight. Ground it? Captain Miller stepped forward. Sir, we are over the Pacific. We can't, Dante said, looking the captain in the eye, or land in Hawaii. I don't care, but I am not flying another mile with this woman in my cabin, and since I own the plane, Dante tapped the armrest of seat 1A. I'm grounding it. The captain looked at the phone. The CEO nodded. Do it, Miller. Land the plane. Honolulu. Now. The plane banked. The sensation of the turn was violent, aggressive. The seatbelt sign flashed. Ladies and gentlemen, The captain's voice boomed over the PA, trembling. "This is the captain. We are diverting to Honolulu. Please take your seats." Dante sat back down in seat 1A. He kicked his feet up. He looked at Patricia, who was hyperventilating against the beverage cart. "You wanted to serve me water in a plastic cup?" Dante asked. Patricia nodded, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. "Get it," Dante said, "and make it sparkling." The descent into Honolulu wasn't like a normal landing. There was no announcement about the weather. There was no "thank you for flying Atlas." There was only the roar of the air brakes and a silence in the first-class cabin that was heavy enough to crush bone. Patricia Vance sat in the jump seat near the galley, her seatbelt buckled, her hands trembling in her lap. She wasn't looking at the passengers. She was staring at the floor, her mind spinning a frantic web of justifications. "He threatened the captain," she told herself. "He forced us to land. That's hijacking. Yes, that's it. When the doors open, I'll tell the police he made a bomb threat. I'll tell them the watch was just a misunderstanding, but the landing, that's on him." Across the cabin in seat 1A, Dante Sterling wasn't sleeping. He was drinking the sparkling water Patricia had poured for him with shaking hands. He looked out the window as the lush green peaks of Oahu rose out of the Pacific. He wasn't looking at the scenery. He was looking at the future of his new company. "Excuse me," Mrs. Higgins whispered from seat 2B. She leaned across the aisle, clutching her pearls. "Young man, Mr. Sterling, is that right?" Dante turned. His expression softened. He had no issue with Mrs. Higgins. She was out of touch, yes, but she hadn't been cruel. "Yes, ma'am." Are we in trouble?" she asked, her voice wavering. "Why are we landing in Hawaii?" Dante smiled, a genuine, reassuring smile that transformed his face. "You aren't in trouble, Mrs. Higgins, but I'm afraid the service standards on this flight were unacceptable. I'm grounding the plane to ensure you get a fresh crew, and to apologize for the delay, I've instructed my assistant to transfer 100,000 frequent flyer miles to everyone in this cabin." Mrs. Higgins blinked. 100,000? "And I believe the Royal Hawaiian Hotel has excellent suites available tonight. On me." Mrs. Higgins sat back, stunned. "Well, that is very generous." She shot a glare at Patricia in the jump seat. "Unlike some people." The plane hit the tarmac hard. The reverse thrusters roared like a dragon waking up. As the aircraft slowed, taxiing not to a gate but to a remote section of the airfield, Patricia saw the flashing lights. Blue and red. Everywhere. There wasn't just one police car. There was a phalanx, airport police, TSA, and 2 black SUVs that looked ominously federal. Patricia's heart hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs. "See?" she thought, a manic hope blooming in her chest. "They brought the SWAT team. They know he's dangerous. I was right." She unbuckled before the seatbelt sign turned off, a cardinal sin for a flight attendant, and rushed to the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, remain seated," she shouted, her voice shrill and breaking. "Do not stand up. We have a security situation. Authorities are boarding to remove a dangerous passenger." She pointed directly at Dante. Dante didn't move. He didn't look scared. He just checked his watch. "Right on time," he whispered. The forward cabin door didn't open with the usual mechanical whine of a jet bridge. It was popped open from the outside by ground crew, letting in the humid, tropical air and the smell of jet fuel. Patricia stood by the door, blocking the aisle, ready to play the hero. She smoothed her skirt. She put on her victim face, eyebrows raised, lips trembling. 3 officers stormed up the mobile stairs, but they weren't regular beat cops. The man in the lead wore a suit that cost more than Patricia's annual salary. He had an earpiece and sunglasses, despite the overcast sky. Behind him were 2 uniformed officers from the Honolulu Police Department, hands resting on their holsters. "Officer," Patricia cried out, throwing her hand up, "thank God you're here. He's in 1A. He threatened the captain. He forced us to divert. He's a hijacker." The man stopped. He took off his sunglasses. He looked at Patricia with eyes that were cold, flat and completely unimpressed. "Who are you?" the man asked. "I'm Patricia Vance, senior purser. I'm the one who raised the alarm," she gushed, stepping forward to grab his arm. "He's dangerous. He has files about the airline. He was tracking the CEO." The man pulled his arm away as if she were contagious. He looked past her, scanning the cabin. His eyes locked on Dante. The man's demeanor changed instantly. He stiffened, nodded respectfully, and walked right past Patricia, knocking her shoulder with his own. "Mr. Sterling," the man said, his voice carrying clearly through the silent cabin, "I'm Agent Kahale, private security for the Atlas Board of Directors. Mr. Vance sent us. We have the transport ready." Dante stood up. He stretched, cracking his neck. "Good to see you, Kahale. Did Arthur brief you on the situation?" "He did, sir. We have the legal team on video conference in the SUV." Patricia stood frozen in the galley. Her mouth was opening and closing like a fish on a dock. "Wait, what?" she whispered. You're here for him." "No, Miss Vance," Agent Kahale said, turning slowly to face her. "We're here for him. The police," he gestured to the two uniformed officers behind him, "they are here for you."
"Me?" Patricia shrieked. It was a sound that made Mr. Abernathy cover his ears. "I didn't do anything. I'm the victim. He stole a watch." "I found the watch," Captain Miller's voice cut through the air. The pilot had emerged from the cockpit. He looked exhausted, rubbing his temples. "It was in the lavatory, Patricia, just like he said. You lied to me. You told me you saw him take it." I deduced it," Patricia stammered, backing away until she hit the coffee maker. "It was a reasonable suspicion. He fit the description." "The description of a black man standing in a hallway?" Dante asked, stepping into the aisle. He picked up his canvas bag, the same bag she had dumped on the floor. "That's not a description, Patricia. That's a prejudice." "Officers," Dante said, nodding to the police, "this woman filed a false report of a felony theft mid-flight. She incited panic. She interfered with the duties of a flight crew, specifically herself, by harassing a passenger to the point of diversion, and she did it all while I was recording the audio on my laptop." Patricia's eyes went wide. You recorded me?" "From the moment you told me I didn't earn my respect," Dante said. "It's all on the hard drive. The accusations, the slurs, the lies about the menu. It's all evidence." One of the Honolulu police officers stepped forward. He was a large man who looked like he had zero patience for drama. He pulled a pair of handcuffs from his belt. The metal ratcheting sound was loud, crisp, and final. "Patricia Vance, please turn around and place your hands behind your back." "No!" Patricia screamed, grabbing onto the beverage cart. "You can't arrest me. I'm a union rep. I have seniority. Captain, tell them. I run this cabin." "Not anymore," Captain Miller said softly. He reached over and unpinned the gold senior purser wings from her uniform. "You're relieved of duty, Patricia. Effective immediately." Patricia stared at the wings in the captain's hand. Her identity, her power, her entire world, gone in a second. She slumped. The fight drained out of her. She let the officers spin her around. She felt the cold steel bite into her wrists. As she was marched down the aisle, past the passengers she had spent years sucking up to, she looked for sympathy. She looked at Mrs. Higgins. Mrs. Higgins was busy putting on her lipstick, pointedly looking away. She looked at Mr. Yamamoto. He was putting on his noise-canceling headphones. She looked at Mr. Abernathy. He was polishing his Patek Philippe watch, looking ashamed. Nobody looked back. Dante didn't leave immediately. He waited until Patricia was shoved into the back of a squad car on the tarmac below. He watched from the window as the lights faded into the distance. "Mr. Sterling," Agent Kahale said, "the car is ready." "Give me a minute," Dante said. He turned to the cabin. The passengers were watching him, a mix of awe and fear. They had just realized they were flying with the owner, and they were all terrified they had offended him. "Sarah,"
Dante called out. The young junior flight attendant popped her head out of the galley. She was shaking. She had been hiding behind the curtain the whole time. Yes, sir? You're the senior purser now, Dante said. Sarah's jaw dropped. Me? But I've only been flying for 6 months. You were the only one who tried to tell her to stop, Dante said. I heard you. You have a good heart, Sarah. That's what I need in this company, not experience in bullying. He pulled a business card from his pocket and handed it to her. Call my office in New York when you land. We're going to rewrite the training manual, and I want you to lead the committee on passenger hospitality. Sarah took the card with trembling hands. I won't let you down, sir. I know, Dante said. He turned to the passengers. Enjoy Hawaii. My team will handle the hotel transfers. Dante grabbed his duffel bag and walked down the stairs. The humid air hit him, smelling of plumeria and rain. He walked across the tarmac to the waiting black SUV. A man in a suit opened the door. Inside, on a large screen mounted to the back of the seat, was Arthur Vance, the CEO. He looked relieved, but also terrified. Dante, Arthur said, is she gone? She's in custody, Dante said, buckling his seatbelt. But Arthur, we have a bigger problem. What? Dante said, his voice hardening as the car sped away toward the Honolulu skyline. Patricia wasn't an anomaly. She was a symptom. She felt comfortable treating me like that because your culture allowed it. She thought she was protecting the brand. That means the brand is broken. We'll fix it, Arthur promised. We'll do sensitivity training. We'll fire the bad apples. No, Dante said, opening his laptop and pulling up the confidential file Patricia had tried to expose. We're going to do more than that. I'm looking at the HR logs for the last 5 years. Patricia Vance has 42 complaints against her. 42. Abuse, discrimination, theft accusations, and every single one was dismissed by management. Who is the VP of HR? Arthur swallowed. That would be Richard Vance, my cousin. Of course, Dante laughed. A cold, dry laugh. Of course. It's a family business. Well, Arthur, get Richard on the phone, because by the time I get to the hotel, I want his resignation letter in my inbox, or I'm selling the company for parts. Dante, you can't, Arthur stammered. He's family. And those passengers were customers. Family doesn't pay the bills. Respect pays the bills. You have 1 hour. He ended the call. He looked out the window at the passing palm trees. He was exhausted. He just wanted to sleep, but he knew the war wasn't over. Patricia was just a soldier. He had just declared war on the generals. His phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. He answered. Mr. Sterling, a voice said. This is Detective Koa, Honolulu Police. We have Miss Vance in holding. She's demanding to speak to you, sir. To me? Dante raised an eyebrow. She says she has information. She says if you press charges, she'll leak stories to the press about safety violations on Atlas planes. She's trying to blackmail you, sir. Dante smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Let her try, Dante said. Detective, keep her there. I'm coming down to the station. If she wants to talk about safety violations, let's talk. I have a feeling she's about to dig her own grave so deep she'll hit magma. Understood, sir. Dante tapped the driver on the shoulder. Change of plans. Don't take me to the hotel. Take me to the police station. The driver nodded. The SUV made a sharp U-turn, heading away from the luxury of Waikiki and toward the grit of downtown Honolulu. Patricia Vance thought the game was over because she was in handcuffs. She didn't realize that for Dante Sterling, the game had just entered the bonus round, and he was playing for keeps. The Honolulu Police Department's interrogation room was a stark contrast to the first-class cabin Patricia Vance was used to. There was no champagne, no plush carpet, just a metal table bolted to the floor and a flickering fluorescent light that buzzed like an angry hornet. Patricia sat in the chair, her hands still cuffed. She looked small. The arrogance that had fueled her for 20 years had evaporated,
leaving behind a desperate, cornered animal. The door opened. She expected a lawyer. Instead, Dante Sterling walked in. He was still wearing his gray hoodie. He sat down opposite her, placing a single file folder on the table. "You wanted to talk?" Dante asked calmly. "I know things," Patricia said, her voice raspy. "I know about the maintenance logs. I know about the skipped safety checks on the 737 fleet. If you press charges, I'll go to the press. I'll tell them Atlas Airlines is flying death traps." Dante leaned back. He didn't look worried. He looked amused. "Patricia," he said softly, "you really don't know who I am, do you?" "You're an investor," she spat, "a rich kid playing with planes." "I own Sterling and CO," Dante corrected. "We specialize in forensic auditing. Before I bought this airline, I spent 6 months analyzing every bolt, every wire, and every maintenance log. I know about the skipped checks." Patricia froze. "In fact," Dante continued, tapping the file folder, "I know exactly who authorized those skip checks to save money. It wasn't the mechanics. It was the VP of operations, a man named Richard Vance." Patricia's face went white. Richard was her cousin. He was the one who got her the job. He was the one who protected her every time she had a complaint. "You see," Dante said, opening the folder to reveal a stack of emails, "I was already planning to fire Richard, but I needed cause. I needed proof of a toxic culture that he enabled. And today, Patricia, I gave you that proof on a silver platter." He slid a piece of paper across the table. It wasn't a settlement offer. It was a press release. "You're not blackmailing me," Dante said, standing up. "You're the headline that allows me to clean house. You're the reason I can finally save this company." Patricia stared at the paper. Her blackmail attempt hadn't just failed, it had handed him the weapon he needed to destroy the very nepotism that protected her. "Enjoy your flight," Dante said, turning to the door. "Oh, wait, you're on the no-fly list now. Enjoy the bus." The cleanse. The next morning, the sun rose over the Pacific, but for the executive team of Atlas Airlines, it was a dark day. Dante Sterling didn't go to the beach. He went to the Honolulu regional office. He walked into the conference room where Richard, the VP who had protected Patricia for years, was waiting. Richard was sweating. He had heard about the arrest. "Dante," Richard said, forcing a smile, "this is all a misunderstanding. Patricia she has issues, but we can't let one bad apple ruin the family legacy." "The family legacy is over, Richard," Dante said. He threw the recording of the flight onto the table. "This is your legacy. Racism, entitlement, negligence." "You can't fire me," Richard blustered. "I have a contract. And I have the police report from last night. Patricia tried to blackmail me using your maintenance shortcuts. She implicated you, Richard. She sang like a canary to save her own skin." Richard slumped in his chair. The betrayal stung more than the firing. His own cousin, the monster he had created, had eaten him alive. "You have 10 minutes to clear your desk. Security will escort you out. And Richard, leave the company credit card." The camera pans over a gleaming new Boeing 787. The livery is different. The old, tired Atlas logo is gone, replaced with a sleek, modern silver wing. The name on the side reads Sterling Air. Inside the terminal at JFK, the atmosphere has changed. The gate agents are smiling, actually smiling. A young man in a hoodie walks up to the first-class counter. He looks nervous. He's never flown first class before. I think I'm in the wrong line," he stammers, looking at his ticket. Behind the counter stands Sarah, the junior flight attendant who had been terrified a year ago. She is now the manager of guest experience. She wears a new uniform, sharp and professional. "Let me see that," Sarah says warmly. She checks his ticket. "Nope, you're right where you belong, sir. Seat 1A. It's the best seat in the house." She hands him his boarding pass. "And, sir, if anyone gives you trouble about your hoodie, let me know. We don't judge books by their covers here anymore." The young man smiles, relieved. "Thanks." "Thank our CEO," Sarah says, pointing to a poster on the wall.
It's a picture of Dante Sterling wearing a suit but holding a beaten-up canvas duffel bag. The caption reads, "Dignity is always first class." Patricia Vance thought she was the queen of the sky. She thought her uniform gave her the right to judge who was worthy, but she learned the hard way. When you look down on people, you miss the moment they rise up to replace you. Dante Sterling didn't just buy an airline, he bought a lesson for the world. True class isn't about the price of the ticket, it's about how you treat the person sitting next to you. If you enjoyed this story of instant karma, hit that like button and subscribe. And tell us in the comments, have you ever been judged by your appearance? Let's talk about it.